Sanje Jodan Zaje Janam La Janjo Mardo Dani Jabzoj Naje Jenzo Jebe Zanam Je Dola Benji Sanje Jobara Jo Sanje Jodan Zaje Janam La Janjo Mardo Dani Chabzo je da je jenzo je bezanan Tola benjir zanje jo barai jo zanje jodan zoje janam janjo bardo dani jabzo je da je jenzo je bezanan Tola benjir Sanje drobara jo zemjen damje dewa dan deve judan demba juji dunga dan dunga je judan dewa juji dunga mebe dewa damba dam mindre wara juji nyere jadan dan deve donyon jambol Neba jure je baden zave lama rinpoche Nagi je vora beme den chola Kadin chambu gone je zonde Gozon doji ngundob zandoze Chomden de jambe yan la jazelu Kanji lo de jene de nenda nam dara zeve Jenye dungu ji jen zik jir ni je doga le bamze Kanda zibe tsudrar mari mundu dunga je zero Gun la boi je dar ze yan la de je yan denso Do da je do nye mo ne lo le ge cha do de ze ji ma re men ze dong nyu gu ji nye che ze re de no de ne da jin za ju da se yen de lu zo ye ze do hu gu chu dra chu da chu ni jian de Na le mun sere jambe yan la du Tse den je ji che ra be se ji Na re ji mu mun ba rab se ni Ka dan ten chu chung lo do bai Lo de bo be na wa za do Bonjour à toutes et tous.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to, as well, everyone. Hello to everyone who's following along online, and also everyone who may be working or on the road and listening as you do things. So hello to everyone. So we're looking at the fourth section of the first chapter, which is called The Complete Classification of the Dhatus. We saw that it contains 7 subparts. We're currently looking at the third subpart, which is entitled The Classification into classifications into endowed, associated, and lacking or dissociated. And concerning this third subsection, it contains 3 further subsections, and we are currently looking at the second subsection, which is entitled Associated with and Dissociated from Course Examination and Subtle Analysis. We saw that this point explains what is stated in stanzas 32 and 33 of Vasubandhu's root text, the Abhidharmakosha. Yesterday we went over some somewhat complex explanations. Just to remind ourselves, we can reread stanza 32. What is associated with coarse examination and subtle analysis are the 5 consciousness dhatus. The last 3 are of 3 types. For the others, both are abandoned. Yesterday we saw all of the explanations that Khelzang Puntso gave in 2015 concerning these 2 stanzas, these different lines of the text. And now we'll continue with stanza 33. Following all of the explanations from yesterday, there is a doubt that can arise. And the first line of stanza 32 says that the 5 consciousness dhatus are associated with coarse examination and subtle analysis. But in one of the sutras, the Buddha said that the 5 sense consciousnesses are non-conceptual. So when the point is that when he says that, what he means is that they are lacking in coarse examination. And so the question is, are these different statements contradictory? But no, they're not incompatible. Stanza 33 clarifies this. It says, they do not conceptualize by way of certain conceptualization and remembrance conceptualization. These 2 things are distracted mental discernment and all remembrances of the mental. So we need to distinguish between 3 different types of conceptualization. There is natural conceptualization. It's the first type of conceptualization. And this natural conceptualization is what is meant by the mental event course examination. And then there is a second type of conceptualization called certain conceptualization. And this type of conceptualization is discernment. Discernment, or sherab in Tibetan, that is found in the entourage of the mental consciousness of a person who is not in a meditative absorption. This certain conceptualization is discernment found in the entourage of the mental consciousness of a person who is not in meditative absorption. There is a third type of conceptualization called remembrance conceptualization. And this third type of conceptualization can be presented by way of 3 points. First, its essence. Its essence is remembrance. Drenpa. Then the second point, what this conception is associated with. It is associated with mental consciousness. In other words, it is a mental event found in the entourage of mental consciousness. And then what state is this conceptualization present in? It is present in a non-meditative state. In other words, not a state of meditative absorption. So that covers the 3 types of conceptualization. Concerning these 3 types of conceptualization, Khelzang Puntso shared a remark with us. He said, as we saw, natural conceptualization, which is course examination, is present in the desire realm and in the basic level of the first meditative absorption of the form realm. But it is no longer present above this basic level of the first meditative absorption of the form realm. Above this, course examination is no longer present. However, the last 2 types of conceptualization, certain conceptualization and remembrance conceptualization, are present beyond. In other words, they are present in the desire realm, in the form realm throughout its various levels, and also in the formless realm. In fact, they are present in all 3 realms. And so now we come to the more specific explanations of stanza 33. So, in the beginning of stanza 32, it is indirectly stated that visual consciousness, for example, is associated with course examination. And here, what's pointed out is that the Buddha said that visual consciousness, along with the other sense consciousnesses, is non-conceptual. Why did the Buddha say that visual consciousness is non-conceptual? Because out of the 3 types of conceptualization we just went over, visual consciousness and the other sense consciousnesses do not possess certain conceptualization or remembrance conceptualization. This is what the Buddha meant by non-conceptual consciousness. Due to the fact that out of the 3 types of conceptualization, 2 are missing, due to the fact that certain conceptualization and conceptualization of remembrance are not present, the Buddha said that these sense consciousnesses are non-conceptual. And although the last 2 types of conceptualization are missing, nevertheless, natural conceptualization or course examination remains or is present. So that's the explanation. So there is an example that Khelzang Puntso shared with us that comes from the 9th Karmapa's commentary. It's something that we find often in everyday conversation. If a horse, for some reason or another, has only 1 leg out of its normal 4 legs, we would say, oh, look, a horse with no legs, even though it does still have 1 leg. So the same thing is happening here concerning visual consciousness or the other sense consciousnesses. When we say that they are non-conceptual or that they don't have conceptualization, in fact, they do have one form of conceptualization, natural conceptualization. Is that clear, more or less? You can, of course, go back over what's been said with the audios. And I'll say again, for those who are here for the presentations for the first time and are discovering the Abhidharmakosha, this is the 4th session, and if you contact the presentation team at Dhagpo, you can write an email to the department, and you can get the audios for the previous sessions. For those who are jumping in now, it can be helpful if you want to undertake the study of Vasubandhu's text. It could be helpful to begin at the beginning and listen to the audios. So that covers this point of the dhatus, out of the 18 dhatus, which are associated with or dissociated from course examination and subtle analysis. We continue with the following point. Hello. So we continue with the complete classification of the dhatus. The 3rd point, the classification in endowed with or associated and lacking or dissociated. We covered the 2nd subsection, which concerns what is associated with or dissociated from course examination and subtle analysis. Now we come to the 3rd classification, which is endowed with or lacking a focal point. So now we'll classify the dhatus depending on whether they have a focal point or not. This refers to lines 1 and 2 of stanza 34. What is associated with a focal point are the 7 mind dhatus and half of the mental objects. So the question is, which dhatus are susceptible to having a focal point? This concerns the 6 consciousnesses and the mental events. The 6 consciousnesses and the mental events are susceptible to having a focal point. What do we mean here when we say that a dhatu has a focal point? This means that it is focused. A dhatu endowed with a focal point is a dhatu that grasps an object. Meaning that out of the 18 dhatus, there are some that grasp an object and others that do not. Grasp objects and others that do not. As stanza 34 tells us, the 7 mind dhatus and half of the mental objects do this. In the previous session, we saw that the mental objects dhatu is 5-fold. We saw that it is made up of sensations, distinctions, conditioning phenomena, non-indicative matter, and the unconditioned. Out of these 5, Some grasp objects and others do not. Out of these 5, those that grasp objects are sensations, distinctions, and among the conditioning phenomena associated by similarity. If I restate what I just said, out of the 18 dhatus, those that grasp objects are the 7 consciousness dhatus and part of the mental objects dhatu. And concerning mental objects, this involves sensations, distinctions, and conditioning phenomena associated by similarity, meaning that out of the mental objects dhatu, those that do not grasp objects are the remaining ones: non-indicative matter, conditioning phenomena not associated by similarity, and the 3 unconditioned phenomena. These 3 are not endowed with a focal point. This concludes the classification into endowed with and lacking a focal point. Out of the 18 dhatus, we looked at those which can have a focal point, which grasp objects, and those which do not. Let's continue with the next point. We've just concluded the 3rd part that concludes the classification of dhatus depending on whether they are endowed or associated and lacking or dissociated. We covered these 3 points: associated with and dissociated from factors for descent. That was during our last session. Associated with and dissociated from course examination and subtle analysis. That's the point that Sylvain concluded this afternoon, just now. And endowed with and lacking a focal point. Now we will begin the 4th subsection of the complete classification of the dhatus, which is the classification of material phenomena. We saw that out of the 18 dhatus, 10 are material. You may recall the 5 faculties and the 5 objects. And now we're going to classify them. The first classification of material phenomena is the classification into invested and non-invested. This refers to the rest of stanza 34, which states what is non-invested is ninefold, the 8 previous ones and sound. The 9 others are of 2 types. So we have 10 material dhatus, out of them which are invested with sensation and which are not invested with sensation. This is the purpose of this classification. We say that a dhatu is invested with sensation if, when we help it or harm it, well-being or suffering appears. What is meant, again, what is meant by invested with sensation? It means if we do good or do harm to this dhatu, then well-being or suffering arises. And so, based on this, we will try to classify these 10 material dhatus into those that are invested with sensation and those that are not. The only material dhatu that is not invested with sensations is sound. The only material dhatu that is not invested with sensation is sound. Sound is not invested with sensation because we cannot harm it or help it. We cannot do it good or harm it. And therefore, based on sound, pleasant and unpleasant sensation cannot appear. Sound, here we're looking at sound along with the definition of invested with sensation. So sound is not invested with sensation because we cannot help it or harm it, and therefore, on its basis, pleasant and unpleasant sensation do not arise. Furthermore, sound has no continuity. So we're considering the 10 material dhatus, and of these, the only one that is not invested with sensation is sound. Now let's focus on the other 9 material dhatus. Write your questions down if you have them. Things will get clearer as we go over this section. So we've covered sound. What about the 9 other material dhatus? In other words, 10 minus sound. So first, the 5 faculties. The 5 faculties are invested with sensation. They are the support for sensations arising. The 5 faculties are the support for sensations arising. We saw that out of these 9, we've covered the 5 faculties and sound. Okay, so now we cannot say that all of the visible, all smells, all tastes, and all tactile phenomena are invested with sensation. What does this mean? It means that visible phenomena, smells, tastes, and tactile phenomena, are not all invested with sensation. So out of these four, some are invested with sensation and others are not. Let's see which ones. Which ones are invested with sensation? Those that are present in the body. Here, when we talk about the body, this refers to the flesh body, the material body. So, those that are invested with sensation are present in the body. However, among the visible phenomena, smells, tastes, and tactile phenomena present in the body, once again, some are invested with sensation and others are not. So out of the visible phenomena, smells, tastes, and tactile phenomena present in the body, which ones are invested with sensation? Those of the present. In other words, the visible phenomena, smells, tastes, and tactile phenomena of the present that are present in the body. These are the ones that are invested with sensation. Meaning that these four, but of the past and the future, are not invested with sensation. Meaning that the visible phenomena, smells, tastes, and tactile phenomena of the past and future concerning these, sensations do not arise on their basis. We cannot harm or help the visible phenomena, smells, tastes, and tactile phenomena of the past and the future. And therefore, they are not invested with consciousness. However, they exist. And this is why the last line of stanza 34 says, the 9 others are 2 types. So here the 9 others refers to the 9 dhatus that are the sense faculties and the visible phenomena, smells, tastes, and tactile phenomena. It said the 9 others are of 2 types. Why can they be these 2 types? Because they can be either invested with or non-invested with sensations. Meaning that the visible phenomena, tastes, visible phenomena, smells, tastes, and tactile phenomena of the body, whether they are depending on whether they are present, past, or future, are either invested with or non-invested with sensation. And it's also said, sovereign mind, the six consciousnesses, the mental events, and non-indicative matter are always non-invested with sensation. Of course, sovereign mind, meaning the six consciousnesses, mental events, and non-indicative matter are always non-invested with sensation. This concerns the first classification of material phenomena into phenomena that are invested or non-invested. Just a short aside, what we just covered concerning material phenomena that are invested or non-invested with sensation, it's not necessarily that easy to grasp why things are presented this way. And all that I'll say, what I can say, is that when we'll study the second chapter, there's a section called the explanation of modes of production of material phenomena and explanation of modes of production of non-material phenomena. We'll see, according to the Vaibhashika view, what makes up a material phenomenon, and specifically what makes up an infinitesimal particle or an atom. And there's a lot of information that helps this make sense. So, yeah, just a little teaser for you guys. So now we'll move on to the second point, or the second subsection of the classification of material phenomena. This second point is the classification into element and resulting from the elements. The classification into elements and resulting from the elements. So this corresponds to the first three lines of stanza 35, where it is said, tactile phenomena are of two types. The 9 other material ones are derived from the elements, part of the mental object dhatu also. Our study right now focuses in particular on the 10 material dhatus. Quick review for those who are wondering: the 10 material dhatus are the 5 faculties and the 5 sense objects. So out of these 10, the only ones that are both elementary matter and derived matter is tactile phenomena. That's what the first line says, tactile phenomena are of two types. When we're talking about derived matter, in fact, we covered this previously when we studied the aggregate of matter. When we talk about derived matter, this refers to matter that is derived from elementary matter. And this elementary matter is the four great elements: earth, water, fire, and wind. All of the 10 material dhatus are derived matter. The only one that is both derived matter and elementary matter is tactile phenomena. You may recall that when we studied tangible objects, when we studied the aggregate of matter, we saw that there are four causal elements. It's like we're getting an interruption. Sorry. There are 11 total tactile phenomena, 4 causal, and 7 derived. So out of the 10 material dhatus, the only one that is both elementary matter and derived matter is tactile phenomena. The others are all derived matter. It's also said in the third line of this stanza, part of the mental object dhatu also. This means that part of the mental objects dhatu is derived matter. This concerns non-indicative matter. This means that the rest of the dhatus belonging to the mental object dhatu, in other words, sensations, distinctions, conditioning phenomena associated by similarity and not associated by similarity, as well as unconditioned phenomena, all of this is not derived matter because it's not matter. And furthermore, out of the 18 dhatus, the 7 consciousness dhatus are likewise not derived matter for the same reason, because they are not matter, they're not material. That was the classification into elements and resulting from the elements. Now we will continue with the third classification of the classification of material phenomena. The third is the classification into accumulated and non-accumulated. Accumulated and non-accumulated means agglomerated or not agglomerated. These are synonyms. And when we talk about things that are agglomerated, this means an agglomeration or an aggregation of atoms. So which dhatus are an aggregation, an accumulation of atoms, and which are not? We find this in the fourth line of stanza 35. It's very simple. The 10 material are aggregation. This means that the 10 material dhatus are agglomerations, agglomerated. They are made up or composed of atoms. They are made up of an agglomeration or accumulation of atoms. However, non-indicative matter is not an agglomeration of atoms. We hear a lot about non-indicative matter in the first chapter. We only have a few elements to apprehend it. All of the explanations about non-indicative matter come in the fourth chapter, in the presentation of acts. So that was the third point or subsection in the classification of material phenomena. Now we come to the fourth, which is the classification into that which is cut and that which cuts. This point will allow us to determine which dhatus cut and which are cut. This corresponds to the first two lines of stanza 36. What cuts and what is cut are the four outer dhatus. So what is meant by what cuts and what is cut? What cuts refers to the dhatus that cut. That cut like an axe or a knife. Dhatus that cut are like an axe. And what is cut refers to the dhatus that are cut, like a tree or a log. This term, cut, refers to separating things. There are material phenomena, material dhatus, that have this capacity to separate other phenomena, other dhatus, in two. And there are other material phenomena or dhatus that have this capacity to be separated into continuity. If this group of atoms does not have a series of moments that succeed one another, we can't cut it. So what is at hand when we're talking about what is cut, pardon me, when we're talking about what is cut, this refers to a group of atoms that possesses a continuity. Out of the 18 dhatus, which dhatus cut and which are cut? In the second chapter, we'll look at the reasonings or the reasons that support what's said here. So this concludes the fourth category, which was that which is cut and that which cuts. We'll continue with the classification into that which weighs and that which is burnt. The fifth classification, the classification into that which weighs and that which is burnt. This refers to the rest of stanza 36. The same is true for what is burned and what weighs. Concerning burning and weighing, views diverge. So, in these two lines of the stanza, we find the term, the same is true. What does this mean? This refers to the four outer dhatus that were brought up in the presentation that Sylvain just gave of what cuts and what is cut. Meaning that the four outer dhatus are also susceptible to being burned and weighing. The four outer dhatus are susceptible to being burned and weighing. Here, when we say that something weighs, this refers to scale, to weight. When we talk about the weight of a phenomenon, this concerns the weight of the four outer dhatus: visible phenomena, smells, tastes, and tactile phenomena. What is said here is that these four dhatus weigh and the others do not. We're still looking at the classification of the 10 material dhatus. So out of these, the ones that weigh are the four outer dhatus. We saw that which are those that are burned? The same ones, the four outer dhatus. The four outer dhatus are those that cut and are cut, that weigh and that are burned. And what are they burnt by? By fire. Concerning fire, there are two different theories. One theory says that only fire allows for wood to burn. That's the first theory. Only fire allows for wood to burn. The second theory says that these four dhatus allow for it to burn. Meaning the four dhatus that are visible phenomena, smells, tastes, and tactile phenomena are what allows for it to burn. That's the second theory. In the world, when we see a fire burning, we think that the wood is only burning due to the fire. However, when the tree or the wood is completely consumed, there's no more fire. The fire ceases. Therefore, others say that both the fire and the wood allow for burning. For example, ashes are made by both wood and fire. Indeed, fire is what consumes, but there's also wood. And then, okay, once again, the first theory is that what burns is only fire, that fire is the only thing that burns or allows for things to burn. And then there's another theory that there are multiple things involved in what burns. And concerning what weighs, the same is true. Concerning what is weighed, some say that the tactile phenomenon, heaviness, is what weighs. And that the tactile phenomenon, lightness, is not something that weighs. Just a quick reminder, as with the previous point that Sylvain brought up, tactile phenomena count 11 things, 4 causal and 7 derived. We saw the explanations on this in these explanations of the 10th stanza, which presents the sense objects. Among the 7 derived tactile phenomena, there are 2 which are known as heaviness and lightness. These are the 2 at hand here. Some say that the tactile phenomenon heaviness is what weighs, and that the tactile phenomenon lightness does not weigh. That's the first theory. The second theory is that both heaviness and lightness have weight. Both heaviness and lightness have weight. So what do we see here? We see that concerning what burns and what weighs, that there's a divergence of opinion. But here Khelzang Puntso says it's just a problem concerning designations, and it's not very important. So this explains lines 2, 3, and 4 for stanza 36. Lines 2 and 3. Anyway, the lines that read, "The same is true for what is burned and what weighs. Concerning burning and weighing, views diverge." So this concludes the final point in the classification of material phenomena, the point entitled Classification into that which weighs and that which is burnt. Let's take a short meditative break. We don't have a gong here, but I'll just say something when our pause concludes. So let's take a short meditative break. Okay, let's continue. We just concluded the classification of material phenomena. We are still looking at the complete classification of the dhatus. And the fifth point is that of the three origins. You can see in the outline that there is a general case and a particular case. But before going into these points, there is a short introduction. Introduction to the explanation of the three origins. Phenomena can be the result of three things. They can be the result of karmic ripening. That's the first thing. They can be the result of growth. And last, third, they can be the result of a similar cause. So these three, once again, are karmic ripening, growth, and similar cause. So let's begin with karmic ripening. What is meant when we say that a phenomenon is the result of karmic ripening? This means that the law of cause and effect is coming into play. This phenomenon is the result of the law of cause and effect. Let's consider some examples. The aggregates of a being born in the higher realms are the result of karmic maturation. They are the result of karmic maturation of a virtuous act. By contrast, another example, contrasting example, the aggregates of being born in the lower realms is the result of karmic maturation of a non-virtuous action. Here, when we say that a phenomenon is the result of karmic maturation, this means that it is the karmic result of an action. Okay, so continuing, what is meant by growth? What is meant when we say that a phenomenon is the result of growth? This refers to the physiological development of the body. This refers to the fact that the body grows, gets bigger. It grows based on four causes. Food, in other words, meals, number one. Second cause is care of the body, like massage. Third cause, sleep. And fourth cause, meditative absorption. The body grows by way of these four causes. Continuing with the similar cause, what is meant by the result of a similar cause? When a phenomenon is the result of a similar cause, this means that there is a similarity between the cause and the fruit, or the result. There is similarity between the cause and the fruit, or the result. Meaning, the following moment or succeeding moment possesses a similarity with the previous or preceding moment. The following or succeeding moment possesses a similarity with the previous or preceding moment. And then it said, in order for there to be similarity, two things must be respected, or two similarities must be respected. The first is what is called similarity of type or substance. That's the first similarity. Similarity of type or substance. And the second similarity is what is called the similarity of realm of existence. For example, if the cause is in the desire realm, then the fruit or result must also be. If the cause is in the desire realm, then the result will also be. We'll look at these two similarities in more detail. So, concerning the similarity of type, or similarity of substance, similarity of type occurs or is present when the cause and the fruit are the same type or the same substance. For example, derived matter is the result of the great elements. There is a similarity of type between the cause and the fruit, because in derived matter we find the great elements, the basis. Both are matter. Continuing with the similarity of realm of existence now. An example is given. After being angry, I cultivate patience. My continuity has gone from anger to patience. So, firstly, there's no similarity of type between these two consecutive moments, because anger is non-virtuous and patience is virtuous. However, there is similarity of domain of existence, because both anger and patience are in the desire realm concerning the person at hand. myself in this example. So this concludes the introduction to the three origins. And we propose that we look at the general case tomorrow. It's 4:20. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. So, concerning everything we saw at the beginning of the session, the sensations, etc., are there examples? Are there examples to understand better? Otherwise I'm going to have to learn everything by heart. We can't give examples. The presentation was given as such. So we have to wait for what comes next. I mean, concerning this part, I'll share my personal experience as a student. The first time that I studied it, that I heard it, like you guys are today, I took this for what it was. It's a succession of lists. So I had a hard time. Some points I could understand, but in a very general way. And now, having studied the other chapters, and through preparing this presentation, this repetition, and for me really shows the quality, the value of the process that Jigmé Rinpoché is guiding us in. Now, having background information, there's much more understanding that arises. There are connections that come up. I mean, I still have tons of questions. There are many things that aren't clear, a lot of unanswered things, but it's already, I don't know, a little bit easier to manage. Yes, to kind of corroborate this, and also to share from the exchanges that we've had with Jigmé Rinpoché about this process of study and reflection. He's told us that we can't reflect on a text until we've received the whole thing. And so, of course, it's good to spend time to go over it, to make sure that we've heard the words correctly, to make sure that we're following the information. That's great, but it is hard to really reflect before we've received the whole text. Well, I mean, that sounds a bit different than I don't know, the methods or the approach to learning in our culture or our country. And I guess my question is then, is it necessary to memorize all of these lists by heart? Because just like this, I don't know. Well, I think the answer to this, there are different approaches. In the Buddhist universities, little kids are learning these lists by heart from the very beginning. But in our culture, we don't necessarily have that kind of habit. Of course, it depends on the individuals, your predisposition. If you manage to remember these lists, that's great, wonderful. And if you don't, manage to remember them, you can come back to it when you've received the whole chapter. And also, another option is when you've received the whole text, then you can start from the beginning and present it, repeat it yourself. And this, again, will bring a new understanding, a new kind of meaning. Clearly, what's clear to me is that there's no end to this process of study. I mean, we ourselves are definitely still students. And just a complementary point concerning this part, and particularly the classification into invested and non-invested. When we received it, over the course of the days that it occurred in the month of January, we had various question and answer sessions, and during them we asked tons of questions about this point. And there are some points that come up in the question and answer sessions that aren't repeated here. The question and answer sessions came out of the work of the people who were studying then. And you yourselves, you have your own questions based on what you've studied previously. I guess the point of that is just to say that the situation is really similar. You know, the first time that we received this, we were totally confused, so confused. And when we ask Khelzang Puntso questions, he gave very skillful answers because he had such knowledge of this text. He had taught it many times already, and he's kind of the expert on the Abhidharmakosha from the Shedra. And in that case, if you ask us questions that were the same questions that we asked and that we have his answer and we, remember it and we can share it with you, then we can give you an answer. But if your questions are questions that we haven't asked, that we don't have Khelzang Puntso's answer to, it's difficult for us to give an answer because we don't have that. We don't have that more in-depth knowledge and understanding. We really are students ourselves. Okay, so just one last question because we have to prepare for the ritual. I have a question about the last point that we saw concerning the similarity of the realm of existence, concerning the example of anger and patience. I don't see how patience can be the result of anger. That's not what's said. What's said is that they succeed one another, and there is a similarity between them, that there are two moments, one follows the other, both are a part of my continuity, and they share a similarity of realm of existence because my continuity is belongs to the desire realm. But aren't we in the third point, which is the result of a similar cause, and a relationship of a cause and its result? In fact, this is a sub-point concerning the similar cause. We said that the similar cause is a similarity between a cause and a fruit. In order for there to be this similarity between a cause and the fruit, both similarities need to be present. in order for the similarity of cause and fruit to be validated, the sentence says, in order for there to be similarity, two types of similarity must be respected: the similarity of type and similarity of realm of existence. So in this example that you've mentioned, we find only the similarity of realm of existence. There is no similarity of type. And therefore, because these two types of similarity are not respected, then concerning this example, the similarity of cause and fruit is not present. This example only concerns the similarity of realm of existence. There will be other examples tomorrow during the explanation. Thank you very much.
À demain.